Yeah, you can actually just in here. You park them in the garage, pull them in the door, and tie them to the statue.
All right, committee, it looks like we have a quorum here. We'll get fired back up. First thing on our agenda after lunch is LSO 26 LSO 209 eminent domain carbon dioxide pipelines. Anna, go ahead and brief us on that bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This bill draft is entitled 26 LSO 209 eminent domain carbon dioxide pipelines. And so starting on page 2, we're creating a new Wyoming statute 126.819. Subsection A indicates that subject to this new section, a person authorized to do business in the state may use eminent domain to place carbon dioxide pipelines. Subsection B on page 2 requires a person exercising the power of eminent domain to negotiate and have finalized land use and compensation agreements that either grant the person the right to occupy and use not less than 66% of the land where the pipeline will be constructed, or with not less than 66% of the owners of the land where the pipeline will be constructed, if not less than 3 landowners are involved in the potential condemnation action. B also requires that the following be alleged in any complaint for condemnation: compliance with those first 2 requirements, and then all terms and consideration, including monetary compensation, which shall remain confidential except for providing the information to the opposing party. And also that the commercial facility states that the pipeline contributes to some sort of public use. Subsection C on page 4 indicates that improvements to the property must be calculated into its fair market value, and that Wyoming statute 126.701 through 715 shall apply to any condemnation under this new section. Subsection D, beginning on page 4, states that no person shall use an existing easement agreement or order granting an easement to place additional pipelines without complying with this section or renegotiating the easement unless the existing easement authorizes initial or additional carbon dioxide pipelines or contemplates a method by which an easement can be enlarged or amended. In subsection E, not less than 30 days before a condemnation action is commenced under this section, the entity seeking to condemn property shall give notice to the applicable Board of County Commissioners and the applicable governing body of the city or town in which the condemnation is to take place. Subsection F on page 5 requires orders granting an easement to contain clauses related to the liability of the parties and reclamation requirements pertaining to the condemner's use of property. Subsection G on page 6 indicates that no property shall be condemned for the placement of carbon dioxide pipelines without complying with this new section. Subsection H on page 6 states that notwithstanding any other law, no person shall use the power of eminent domain to place or expand pipelines for the purpose of carbon capture, utilization, or storage in order to meet the low carbon energy standards specified in Wyoming statute 3718-101 and 3718-102. And then beginning on page 6 in section 2, there are a couple of conforming amendments. And then section 3 on page 8 contains an applicability section that indicates that this act shall apply to eminent domain actions entered into after July 1st, 2026, and that nothing in the act is construed to impair existing contracts, and also nothing in the act shall be construed to prohibit projects regarding carbon dioxide pipelines that have begun the local or state permitting process before July 1st, 2026. Section 4 provides an effective date, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Anna. Committee, Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Anna, just a quick question. You said applicable a couple times. Is that in the bill now?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Representative Ottman, that should be on page 8 in section 3. Unless I gave you the wrong page number, and I might have. Let me see.
Okay, I just wondered, because a couple times, like when we were talking about Board of County Commissioners and stuff was
Oh.
applicable, so I didn't know if we had already amended something like that in, or,
So the county commissioners section is subsection E on page 5.
yeah, and is it applicable, or is it, that was just said?
Basically, it just requires that the county commissioners and the governing bodies of a city or town be given notice.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Anybody else? Senator Crago.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Anna, I was just wondering how this potential law, this bill would interplay with 126.814, which is the right of eminent domain for pipelines. Do we reference that in here?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Crago, I believe, let me see. I think I do. No. So it actually isn't referenced in the bill. And really, it might not be a bad idea to put something maybe in subsection A stating that that 819 just applies to carbon dioxide pipelines notwithstanding 814 or something along those lines, just to make it clear. But that's up to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good. Senator Crago. Okay. Others, committee. Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I don't know if you would know this answer, Anna, but do you know when possibly the last time condemnation was used on pipelines in Wyoming?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Davis, from what I can tell, it's been a very long time. I've talked to some industry people, and I haven't heard of a condemnation action being used for this purpose in quite a while. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Okay, we'll open it up now for public comments. Anybody in the gallery that would like to testify regarding eminent domain?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brett Moline, Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation, sitting in support of this bill. The current situation, when a company has, or an industry has the power of eminent domain, that means one person, one entity can force a project through. If they have the power of eminent domain and if they use it. The other extreme is where nobody has the power of eminent domain. That means one person on the route can stop a project. Well, that isn't, those are the two extremes. To me, what this bill does is it kind of strikes a middle ground, that you have to have 66% of the people under contract for the route before you can use eminent domain. Appreciate this bill. I think it fits with my members' policy. It protects private property rights. It doesn't go to the extreme where one person can stop or can force a project. I think it's a good middle ground. Appreciate the language in there about liability. I know that's a concern to my members. An example, up in northeastern Wyoming, they were under the understanding that they had to carry extra liability insurance because of a pipeline that came through. This would put it into the contract. Do you or don't you? It makes it clear who's bearing the liability of it. And I really appreciate the confidentiality of the agreements. It'll be open to, the courts will have it, but it will not be out there on public knowledge. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, to address a little bit of Representative Davis's question, it's not, eminent domain is truly very, very, very seldom used. It's, as LSO said, it's probably been years, decades maybe, since it's been actually exercised. But I think having the companies that have the power have a leg up on the private landowners because they do have the power. So that kind of puts you back a little bit when you know that they can just condemn it. I think this bill, much like what with the collector lines, with the wind projects, this kind of brings everybody to the table, levels it a little bit. I think it's definitely better for the landowners. Brings everybody to the table to negotiate a fair deal for everybody. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would sit for any questions you or the committee may have for me.
Thank you, Mr. Moline. Committee, questions? I think you're off easy.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's a
thank
good
you,
day.
Mr. Moline.
Mr. Chairman, Jim McGagnon with the Wyoming Stock Growers Association. I can save some time by saying that the comments that Mr. Moline made would be very similar to the comments that I would make. We agree with this as we worked through the process on collector lines last year. It represents a good approach to the use of eminent domain where you create the right balance. The one question that I've had brought to me that I don't have an answer to is why are we, from a landowner perspective, the impact of a pipeline is the construction maintenance of the pipeline. It's not what throws through the pipeline unless there's a human health issue or that. So why are we doing this, singling out carbon sequestration for this approach rather than using it as a broader approach to dealing with eminent domain for pipelines? And I don't have an answer to that question. Perhaps the committee in your discussion can answer that. But as an approach, we would be supportive of this approach for pipelines.
Thank you, Mr. McGagnon. Representative Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. McGagnon, I have a question for you. Is carbon dioxide in the public interest or necessity of the public? I'm having a problem with carbon dioxide. I don't see why it's singled out in this bill. So I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Johnson, I'm certainly not an area and I'm an expert in, but the things that come to mind is, for one thing, carbon dioxide is used for enhanced oil recovery. We certainly have an interest in the state in maximizing our oil production. A second thing would be that carbon sequestration, the ability to sequester carbon, enables some of our other facilities in the state. It may be coal mining, it may be something else that's able to continue because we're able to sequester the carbon. I'm not necessarily, we don't see carbon as a threat, but given the realities, I'm looking at this from the perspective of what enables us to maximize the opportunities for our industries, for our growth in the state.
Representative Johnson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would just say that doesn't this carbon dioxide benefit a corporation and not the whole good of the state? I mean, if you signal out enhanced oil recovery, that's going to help one segment of the economy, but not the entire state, not the good of the whole state. It's going to help one or two corporations in one area. And I'm against eminent domain for this reason at all. I don't think it's appropriate. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr.
Mr. Chairman, I certainly understand and respect that position. I would say that, for example, carbon sequestration or carbon transportation for enhanced oil recovery, the benefits of that oil recovery can accrue to a landowner that has mineral interests that is driving revenues from that oil. It can accrue to the local communities where that company is spending dollars and employing people. I mean, it's hard to draw that line exactly and say that this activity, in my view, does not provide any public benefit. I guess you could debate for a long time how we define public benefit for that purpose, but that would be my response, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. McGagnon. Others from the committee? Do you want to chime in on any of Mr. McGagnon's questions? Senator Crago.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. McGagnon, I mean, most of us are aware there's a project in this very county, and probably includes some of your members, or at least people involved in the agricultural industry. How will this bill how could this bill affect folks like that are trying to put together projects?
Mr. Chairman, Senator,
ahead.
are you talking about how it could affect landowners that are trying to put together projects? You know, if it's a landowner who is gaining a financial benefit from an agreement with a company to put a pipeline through their land, then that's done on a voluntary basis. If this bill, if the objecting landowners reach the point that the pipeline could not be constructed, then there would be a negative impact on those landowners. Now, with the 66 2/3% provision in there, that's far less likely to happen. And we would certainly be concerned if this bill provided for an absolute prohibition of use of eminent domain, because then the direct impact could be on 98% of the landowners could be dramatic, just because of the inability or unwillingness of one landowner to negotiate an agreement.
Thank you. Senator Crago, is that good? Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, I'll just make one comment. You know, you mentioned public use, and that's where, you know, that gets expanded pretty easily with special interests, especially private companies that want to be classified or try to fit into that classification somehow. You see that not just in Wyoming, but other areas on development within close proximity to towns and growth. And anyway, yeah, they've got to be careful with dealing with expanding the intent of that language. Thank
Certainly
you.
not an easy issue, yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. McGagnon.
Thank you.
Committee. Gallery, yeah, go ahead. Any other public testimony?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee. Pleasure to see you all. Pete Obermueller, I'm the president of the Petroleum Association of Wyoming. Real briefly, Mr. Chairman, since there's at least one new member, let me just mention that the Petroleum Association is the only statewide association that represents the oil and gas industry from start to finish in Wyoming. That includes the people that explore for oil and gas, because Wyoming is still an exploratory state. We don't know all of the resources that we have, and we're still trying to find it and develop the science to extract it. And of course, the people who drill for oil and gas, and then the folks who take it to market, including in Wyoming and around the world, the people who need and demand our energy in order to turn your light switch on. And then also the people who refine it into products that we use every single day. That's PAW's members. Mr. Chairman, PAW's members employ about 19,000 people in the state of Wyoming. 19,000 families in Wyoming who rely on the oil and gas industry for their livelihoods. 19,000 people who, the vast majority of which, live and work here. A full third of Wyoming's production comes from the smallest oil and gas companies, mom and pop oil and gas companies that live and work in all of our communities all around the state, who are out turning wrenches every day, producing a full third of our oil production in the state, which is remarkable and unique across oil and gas producing regions, or states, I should say. Last year, Mr. Chairman, oil and gas alone provided the state of Wyoming over $1.9 billion in tax revenue. Let me put that number in perspective. If you just conjure in your mind for a moment the annoying property tax that you pay on your house, and think about what that number is, and then add to it $8,000 every year, that's what every 238,000 families, every household in Wyoming would have to pay an additional $8,000 every year to cover what oil and gas provides for the state of Wyoming in terms of tax revenue. That, Mr. Chairman, is the definition of public benefit. Do some people make money on that? Sure. We all like to make money in this capitalist system. But I would argue that nothing advances Wyoming's economy and our ability to flourish in this state than the ability to produce our energy. the definition of public benefit. So, Mr. Chairman, we strongly oppose this bill. And the reason why, and then I will turn it over to the chairman of PAW's board, Ms. Shelley Shelby with Continental Resources, to offer her remarks. We oppose this bill because the future of oil and gas production in Wyoming, to provide all of what I just described, is enhanced oil recovery. In initial production, we can produce about 15 to 20% of oil in place. That's how we, when we first drill a well from the original pressure. After that, we have to do something else in order to get more out. The most successful way to do that is to inject CO2. That produces another 15 to 20%. Every single enhanced oil recovery project in Wyoming has been successful, a 100% success rate in enhanced oil recovery. The trouble is they are massively capital intensive, very, very expensive to do. And a new one has not happened in Wyoming in several years, maybe I think over a decade. But that is not to say that we don't have the potential. There are over 75 oil and gas fields in Wyoming that each have at least 10 million barrels of recoverable oil through CO2 injection. But, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we have to get the CO2 there. Luckily for Wyoming, we have CO2 and we have it in abundance. We have the largest carbon capture facility in the world in Wyoming and a 478-mile CO2 pipeline that runs from the southwest to the northeast. But in order to get it to those 75 fields, we have to be able to spur it. And right now, today, there are actionable projects in line and under development that will be severely jeopardized by this bill, including ones in Campbell County and an exciting one that could possibly develop our legacy fields in the Bighorn Basin. For the first time ever, there is an actionable plan to develop our legacy fields in the Bighorn Basin. Unfortunately, this bill will put a severe damper on those investments and investments, I might add, that your colleagues on the Minerals Committee are trying to figure out ways to incentivize instead of trying to figure out ways to block. So let me mention real quickly on the 66%. I appreciate what my friends in the ag industry were saying about that. The trouble is it's not realistic. You heard from them themselves that there has not been an eminent domain action in Wyoming in decades. Neither, similar to LSO, I could not find someone who knew of the last time there's been an eminent domain action. What that says to you or to me, and what I hope it says to you, is that the balance is working. It's working, and we actually do it well in Wyoming. We sit down, my members sit down with landowners and figure out how to move forward. It's not a bludgeon. Are there overzealous lawyers that sometimes go in and say something they shouldn't say? Sure. I wish that weren't true. But it's a two-way street on these negotiations. And it is unrealistic to believe that one person, one landowner could force an entire project. But it is very realistic, because we deal with it every day in the Powder River Basin, that landowners, quite rightly, not criticizing at all, landowners work together in very large groups in order to negotiate with my members to get the highest and best price for what they own or for crossing their land, et cetera. It is not a hurdle for them to get to prevent getting to 66%. So, Mr. Chairman, I have a lot more to say about it. I'm going to stop there because I want to turn it over to Ms. Shelby, who has some additional thoughts, and I'll turn it over to her.
Thank you, Mr. Overmueller. Yeah, we can ask questions, or we can go right to you, however.
Whatever is your pleasure, Mr.
Yeah, go
Chairman.
ahead. You just
Thank you,
take
Mr.
the
Chairman.
baton. Thank you.
Shelley Shelby, Continental Resources. Pleasure to see you all today. We are the largest privately owned oil and gas company in the entire country. And we are also one of the largest operators here in Wyoming. We're new to Wyoming. We've only been here a few years, but we actually have high hopes that Wyoming can be a potential Bakken replacement. And we're working our hardest to do as much as we can in Wyoming to make that happen. You have a few things going against you, one of which, and the most important, is the federal government kind of works against Wyoming all of the time. And so we've spent much of this year, Pete and I both, working on getting permits moving for the Powder in Converse County as much as we possibly can. We just had that happen. But there is this realistic concern that the federal government influences greatly primary production in in Wyoming. I operate in 6 states, so sometimes I say the wrong one. And secondary production or secondary recovery, EOR, is a very viable path to bring millions of barrels of oil out of this ground. And we will do anything we can as a company to make sure that oil comes out of the ground. That's our whole goal. And I will tell you that we're very spunky politically. We tend to agree with a lot of the folks who are against the Green New Deal. We hate wind, we hate solar. We've done a lot of things. By the way, I'm probably making Pete very uncomfortable with saying some of these things, so I'm sorry for that. But we've done a lot of things to limit some of these new energy ventures in DC. For example, we're the reason that the One Big Beautiful Bill is repealing all of the production tax credits for wind and solar. Also, if you notice, there's support for carbon capture projects in that bill and by President Trump. And so how we view all of this is that carbon capture infrastructure is not actually anything different than oil and gas infrastructure. Carbon capture is us. If you look around at all of the companies that are actually doing it here in Wyoming, whether it's Tallgrass or Frontier or even Exxon, Frontier and Tallgrass in particular, because Exxon's very obvious that it's an oil and gas company, they're filled with oil and gas folks working there. It's because carbon capture is us. In the future, we will be using all this CO2 to do as much EOR as we possibly can. We're doing it in other states. Right now, we have a huge project in North Dakota and one down in Oklahoma as well. We're using natural gas, injecting it downhole and doing an EOR project in both of those places. Well, natural gas has other demands on its time. Most specifically, all this new power that everything that is needed so much, the grid reliability issues that are going to happen. So the likely avenue for EOR in the future has to be CO2. And so when we talk about carbon capture projects, just bear in mind, it is actually oil and gas. I know there are other avenues that it also helps. It is hugely helpful to coal, for example, and Trona. It keeps them in business. So all of these projects are very much in the public good, and they're in the public good for creating power, developing oil and gas in Wyoming and in the US. And our goal as a company is we do everything we can to make sure that American energy is the priority and not necessarily the priorities of folks in other countries like Russia, China, or anywhere in the sandbox like Saudi Arabia. And so everything we do, including carbon capture, is with that national security mindset of developing oil and gas in this country. And I just want you to keep that in mind of why we engage in these projects. And I want you to know that it is actually oil and gas that is doing this, not some Green New Deal Biden thing. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Shelby. I said that last name right. Was it Shelby?
Yes, sir. It's very confusing. It's Shelley Shelby. They
Right.
run together. My parents were very creative.
Thank you. Committee, questions? Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This question for Mr. Overmuller. I'm really having a hard time with eminent domain for carbon dioxide. I can see that you, as oil and gas giant, would benefit from using this carbon sequestration or enhancement. But once you've used the power eminent domain to cross somebody's land, you've actually stolen the land from them. That's what they think. And once you've exhausted that oil field, how do you ever turn that back over to those people? I mean, I'm having a hard time. I think that we have the free market and you should go around those people. And I'm against this bill, but tell me what happens to that pipeline once you've exhausted your fields.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, let's back up. We don't just come in and say, we're now invoking eminent domain. That's not how it works. And the use of the word stolen is also untrue, because under the law, of course, you don't get to just take it. There's an entire process, and the courts are involved about providing fair market value. Number one, if we even get there, which we, as you've heard, we haven't done in years and years and years and years. Why haven't we done it in years and years? Because my members are very good at sitting down with landowners. Do they fight? You bet. Our landowners really savvy about what they want and what they'd like, not just from money standpoint, but from the timing, lambing and those sorts of things. Are they savvy about that? You bet. And they're getting more savvy every single day. So stolen is off the table. That's not how it works. Number one. Number two, in contrast to the wind energy collector system, where all of the impact is above ground, where you could theoretically be a neighbor with you get no value whatsoever, and yet you look at it out your kitchen window every day. In this case, they're buried, reclaimed, and can be used. And when the project is completed, that reclamation and that liability remains for the company to the extent that they're still there. So it is the above ground impact is minuscule in comparison, and the company's interest is long term. So it's better for everybody at the end of the day, the landowner, the company, everyone. It ultimately is more expensive for Ms. Shelby's companies and other to exercise eminent domain, particularly across a large swath, which is why the charge of one person can bring a project is just completely unrealistic. It is more expensive. It's better for you. It's better for us. And the last thing I will say is Wyoming is not big oil, Representative Johnson. Wyoming is Wyoming oil. We have one major oil company that operates in Wyoming, and that's Exxon. And do you know what? The oil is not their thing here. Helium is. We have independents and small mom and pops.
Follow up, Representative
I
Johnson.
guess, how many of these CO2 pipelines are going to go to the mom and pop oil fields? And I want to qualify my adversarial position against eminent domain is that I know of a person that committed suicide when he actually believed his land was stolen. Sure, he got compensation for it, but what's the price of a human life? And so that's where I'm coming from. I would like you to get 100% of the landowners to agree to a pipeline. And that's my stance. So tell me, go ahead. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Obermueller.
Mr. Chairman, if where you draw the line is 100%, then there's nothing I can say. I draw the line closer to the fact that we in Wyoming for years and years and years have been able to sit across a kitchen table and negotiate something. So unfortunately, a bill like this and 100%, of course, ends that. You can no longer talk about it anymore.
Committee, other questions? I might ask one real quick. You made a comment, our job here is to obey and defend the Constitution. That's one of the things that we had to do before we took our chairs. You made a comment on public benefit, whereas the language in the Constitution is public use. How do you expand that to public benefit? That was the word you used. Just curious if that's a stretch for public benefit versus public use. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, happy to debate semantics. I think that's a distinction without a difference. If Wyoming is no longer able to plan for the future of oil and gas development, if we're no longer a player in oil and gas because we can't get what we need to the fields that we need it, benefit, use, it's all gone.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Obermueller. Yeah, words have meanings, and we have to be careful up here because we live and by the right language and constitutionality. So just wanted to make that clear. Thank you. Committee. Senator Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know you all wanted to hear from me again today and yesterday. So my question would be, so this bill is set at 66%, right? 66% approval from the landowners. So how hard is it to get to that 66% if you are offering them, you know, a fair price to put this pipeline across their land. I mean, how difficult is that? Like, I don't agree with 100%, but at least this is giving all landowners some sort of say. And I have to say that I'm not so much against carbon pipelines for the recovery of the oil and gas, but as far as sequestration, I'm not really in favor of pipelines being built just to sequester carbon dioxide, because I think it's very important that we have it in our air, you know, but anyway, could you answer that for me?
Go ahead, Mr. Obermuehl.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Pearson, yeah, I appreciate that. I think your answer can be found in the fact that there hasn't been an eminent domain used in pipelines in years and years and years and decades. That means every single landowner has gotten to some sort of agreement without the use of eminent domain. So to my point earlier, that indicates that it works. When you upset the balance like this does, it's no longer going to work.
Follow-up, Senator Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So how is it no longer going to work if it's worked before? I mean, it's just a percentage of the landowners and getting their approval and coming to some sort of an agreement. I mean, whether there's a percentage in there or there's not a percentage in there, why do you think that you still won't be able to negotiate these agreements and get the landowners, 66% of the landowners on board, I guess is what I'm asking. I mean, I'm just wondering why you're against that.
Want to take that, someone?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, if you don't mind, I'll take that question. So I will tell you that our experience has been, we want everybody to be on board. We've built a pipe across Wyoming before, for example, way before we were actually an operator here, and there was no use of eminent domain. The ideal is to not have ever use eminent domain whatsoever. But what it does is it forces people to the table, so to speak. It forces you to negotiate. And you can see in other states in particular, we've noticed this, where there's one landowner who kind of can prevent the whole thing from happening. And some of it's based on topography, some of it's based on infrastructure, locations, you know, the proximity to the actual gathering or the proximity to the wells that need to be accomplished. But these routes are very well planned and very intentional, just as everything is. I mean, I've literally been out in Converse County with one of our landowners trying to put just gathering lines, just gas gathering lines from wells. And we had very limited windows of where we could go because of physical elements in the property. And so they're very intentionally planned. But if there's one landowner who won't talk to an oil company or won't even engage, they have the effect of upsetting the whole apple cart for everybody else who stands to make some money from this and who stands to be, you know, invested in the project and so forth, the other landowners, I mean. So while eminent domain exists in the law and is there as a judiciary process, it isn't used, and that's a good thing right now. And I think that this isn't actually a problem in Wyoming, and we should be happy about that. The other thing I would think it will send is that when a law change occurs in any state, it sends a message to business, and it sends a message even more so than just the companies themselves, but the bankers. So if you're trying to get a carbon capture project built right now, or just a regular oil and gas pipeline, because they are fairly interchangeable, you have to get financing because these things cost billions of dollars. And so you go to people like JP Morgan or one of the other big banks, Wells Fargo, one of the big financiers, and if there is any regulatory uncertainty or any questionable business environment in the state in which you're going to build the pipeline, they won't give you the money. And so there's not people just sitting around with the billions it takes to build a pipeline. They need financing to be part of it. And so the message that is sent sometimes with regulatory certainty matters more so than you know. And it matters more so than just companies like mine. It actually is more impactful to the bankers and thus our ability to get financing to then do the project. The Huff and Puff project, for example, we have in North Dakota, which, you know, I think was $700 million. Don't quote me on that. I'd have to actually look it up, but that's a sizable chunk of change. And we don't have that sitting around, so we get financing. That project in turn produces a lot more oil that provides hundreds of millions of dollars to the state. And so that's what we want to do here. But I am cognizant of the message it sends to the financiers and the businesses who are choosing to operate here. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, Ms. Go ahead.
I just
Mr.
want to add,
Obermiller.
I just want to add one thing to that question. Everything that Ms. Shelby just said is exactly right. The land ownership pattern in Wyoming is what makes the 66% not work, because it is not a high hurdle at all. Especially the way the bill is written, that it's either 66% of the land or 66% of the owners themselves. It is not a high hurdle at all for them to coalesce and not allow any negotiation to get to that threshold in the first place, and then shut it down.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Obermiller. Got to stay up here. We got one online here, Representative Schmidt.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for Mr. Obermuller. A few times it's been said that, this eminent domain hasn't been used in Wyoming for years and years and years and years. I guess my question is where this is kind of centered around the CO2, enhanced oil recovery and all that stuff. Are you anticipating issues with CO2 pipelines? Is that your concern or part of your concern here when we start looking for right-of-ways for these CO2 pipelines?
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt, or Representative Schmidt. Go ahead, Mr. Obermiller. You want to take that?
Mr. Chairman, through you, can I just ask Representative Schmidt to clarify? Do I anticipate what issues is he asking? Am I anticipating?
Did you get that, Representative Schmidt? Go ahead.
Yes, I did. The issues around CO2, there's a lot of controversy back and forth around CO2 in Wyoming. Do you anticipate issues with a CO2 pipeline being more of a controversy crossing land than say a regular natural gas pipeline or petroleum pipeline?
Mr. Obermiller.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Schmidt, I appreciate the question. Again, you can clarify if I'm not answering it in the right way. I don't anticipate any issues from a CO2 pipeline as apart from any other pipeline. We've had that, as I mentioned, we've had that trunk line that goes from Southwest Wyoming to Northeast Wyoming that has been in place for a long, long time with zero reportable safety events. And the siting of any pipeline for any purpose has to go through the same process of good faith negotiation, et cetera, et cetera. And that's no different. So I don't, there's not something specific that I anticipate about CO2 pipelines. It is true that CO2 as a topic is different because there's obviously debate about CO2 and its uses. Our position has always been that in Wyoming, in contrast to other places, we view CO2 as a commodity. We actually need more of it for every purpose that everybody wants to use it for. And we are in an interesting situation in Wyoming where we actually have it. If we don't use it here, the pipeline is going to take it to places that will use it for EOR, like North Dakota, who just dropped about $50 million into projects, EOR projects in North Dakota, just announced yesterday. So I don't foresee any specific issues. I'd ask Ms. Shelby if there's something to add.
No, I don't foresee any issues, Representative Schmidt, with our current structure. But I would say, again, that we have a regulatory certainty environment right now, and we shouldn't want to change that in order to have these projects that are on the cusp of getting moving. I mean, some are already moving, I should say. Wyoming is actually kind of out front on carbon capture in a lot of ways by virtue of the fact that you had the Class 6 authorization in the first place. One of two states, North Dakota and Wyoming, that had it, now a third has it, and you've already issued Class 6 permits. Wyoming is actually in the lead on a lot of that. And so the chilling effect of regulatory changes and legal changes is what could stop that. But do I anticipate any problems with landowners or those negotiations? Absolutely not. I think we in general have a very supportive state. Everybody in this state seems to actually be supportive of oil and gas, and that's a much better place to operate than some others. So,
Thank you. Representative Schmidt, you have a follow-up or are you good?
No follow-up. I'm good. Thank you.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your negotiations, question for both of you. If you threaten eminent domain, doesn't that enhance your bargaining position? Doesn't that kind of take away from the landowner's position? I mean, you can threaten to take their land away. I just think that maybe that's a bargaining chip that you shouldn't have, and I'm just, please explain that to me.
Go ahead, Mr. Obermehl.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Johnson, yeah, as I said before, negotiations are a two-way street. It requires two people willing to try to move forward to an agreeable position. So have there been instances where some company attorney airdrops in from some other town and acts like a jerk? You bet. It's happened. The unfortunate truth is that there's also examples of landowners being quite intransigent and not wanting to sit down and talk at all. Don't want to engage at all. So it's a two-way street. And the good news about Wyoming, because it's not just eminent domain, I mean, we have split estate issues, we have all sorts of issues that require sitting down, over a cup of coffee and working out something that makes it good for everybody. And I'm actually quite proud of Wyoming. We do it pretty well. And I think the facts bear that out.
Anybody else? Yeah, I'll just make one last comment. Appreciate you both being here. Good discussion. Mr. Obermueller and I have kind of been in this discussion in the past, and it's a hard balance for sure. I mean, if you come from an absolute property rights vantage point, it gets even tougher. So, it's a struggle to get that balance and fully understand the benefits that our legacy oil and gas industry brings to the state of Wyoming. And thanks for pointing that out on the benefits. But we got to look at the letter of the law too, to make sure we're protecting who we're supposed to be protecting in our jobs here. So thank you both for being here today. Yeah. Oh, Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello, Mr. Obermueller, Ms. Shelby. I was hoping that you could just explain a couple of things to me. First off, this bill goes to go against eminent domain for carbon sequestration. So are we currently doing it? Number one, do we have pipelines already? Number two, what do these pipelines look like? I mean, are they as big as a house? Are they all underground? Is it just where we drive across the landscape and we see little sticks with orange flags on them? What is it that we're looking at with these?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Ottman, hello. Nice to see you. Thanks for the question. Yeah, let's back up for a second. The main, we do, as I mentioned, we do have a CO2 pipeline in Wyoming, a main trunk line that goes all the way from basically Sublette County all the way up into Campbell. Maybe it cuts across Crook, I'm not exactly sure, but that traverses the entire state. And there are some spurs that come off of that. All of that is underground, except for, there's parts where it kind of dips up. So there's maintenance sections. Yeah, risers is the word I'm looking for. Thank you, Shelley. There are risers that allow for maintenance and cleaning out the pipe, et cetera, et cetera. But the vast majority is underground. That's true for oil pipelines that go across Wyoming, leave the state, natural gas pipelines, and CO2. The ones you're referring to are sometimes above ground at the well pad in order to move water, and they're temporary. If they're above ground, they're generally temporary. But those aren't handling CO2. That's different. Let me turn it over to more of an expert on the technical side to correct everything I just said.
No, you were great, actually. It is very much where you're driving along and you'll see a sign that warns of underground pipes. You'll see the little, I think it's orange usually, and it just kind of warns that there is underground pipe. And the whole purpose of that is so that you don't go take a bulldozer right there and accidentally hit something, right? And accidentally create an environmental hazard or a disruption of your bulldozing efforts as well. But they're very much all subsurface. You wouldn't even know they existed necessarily, but for the maintenance risers every once in a while and those signs. It's very much the same as an oil and gas pipe. It very much is. And is better than, well, I always say this, the more we have subsurface, the better off you are, because if you're running water or oil or anything like that in trucks, it's just a lot of trucks on the road. So everything we can do subsurface, we do. And temporary lines are used for water movement, like you referred. You see those on the surface, but those are very much temporary. They're usually only there for a matter of weeks while the actual operation of drilling or completing a well is occurring, and then they're gone. So that's probably the difference you're looking for with that.
And Mr. Chairman, just FYI, there's over 25,000 miles of pipeline in Wyoming.
Follow.
Representative Ottman, go ahead.
And just to, again, just for education for myself, with the CO2 sequestration and things like that, is sequestration a procedure that's different, or is CO2, do you say it's mined?
So, Mr. Chairman, Representative Ottman, so there's several uses for CO2. It can be used in manufacturing, it can be used in other things. But primarily what we're talking about and what this bill covers essentially is any use. The two primary uses that we're talking about are permanent sequestration, where CO2 is moved and injected underground for permanent storage. That's what Senator Pearson was talking about and doesn't love, and that sort of thing. Then there's sequestration for use to produce more oil. That's enhanced oil recovery. Incidentally, at the end of an enhanced oil recovery project, all of that CO2 you've injected is then permanently stored because you've injected it in order to push out more oil. Does that make sense? So that there is a different regulatory process for both of those. And permanent sequestration has, at least in Wyoming, a lot more, shall we say, checkered debate than enhanced oil recovery. I think most folks, not all folks, but most folks support using CO2 for productive uses like enhanced oil recovery. The trouble is a bill like this cannot and does not separate it out. So it is a challenge to enhanced oil recovery as much as to permanent sequestration. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Others, committee. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Mr.
it.
Chairman.
Yep. Further testimony, public comments. Yeah, go ahead and state your name and introduce yourself to the
Right.
committee.
Thank you very much. My name is Rennie McKay. I'm the president of the Wyoming Business Alliance. And the Wyoming Business Alliance has been around for almost 45 years here in Wyoming. And we are a private nonprofit. We advocate for businesses in the state. We have members from every corner of the state, from every industry, and every size of business. And our main focus is to try to help create the environment, the conditions for businesses to prosper in the state. So really glad to be here with you today to talk about this bill. Early on in the history of the Wyoming Business Alliance, one of the big initiatives that the Alliance took on, representing all industries and all businesses, was to support the Kern River Pipeline. And so that Kern River Pipeline took gas out of western Wyoming to the West Coast. And the reason the Alliance got involved in that is because that was so valuable to all of Wyoming and to our entire economy. That ability to have another market for Wyoming gas has done a lot. And there's been calculations, but as Mr. Obermueller just said, when you're talking about this year, what oil and gas contributed in terms of tax revenue being over $1 billion, when you're talking about the GDP, when you're talking about jobs that get spread out across all of the businesses of this state, a pipeline like Kern River brought in billions of dollars to this state. And so hopefully that gives you a little bit of the context of why the Alliance as a whole would be here to talk to you today, because we oppose this bill in that same space, is that we really want to have more investment here. We want to have more jobs and more economic growth. We think that's so important for the generations to come. And so we've been working on that for 45 years. And I think as you look at this, in my policy time in Wyoming, that Bighorn Basin and those enhanced oil recovery projects that are possible there have always been a goal. And it's a challenging situation to try to get both the policies right from a federal standpoint, from a permitting standpoint, get the private investment opportunities all lined up to make something like that happen. And I do think we're getting as close as I've ever seen Wyoming to getting those projects to happen. Again, similar to a Kern River type of a situation, that would be an enormous growth opportunity for Wyoming in terms of bringing in more revenue and more GDP and more jobs. So I'm very concerned about if this bill goes forward, we're sending a message and changing the environment. So there's a question about, what would happen if, is there an anticipation that something would happen? Well, again, you're changing the goalposts on an industry, and you're changing, I think, kind of the barriers to entry. That regulatory certainty, I think, would be at risk. So that is why I guess I'm here to just say the Business Alliance as a whole opposes this, because we really do just see so much benefit when we have great oil and gas projects in the state, whether it's my banking members, whether it's the small business Main Street members, all of them see benefit and see their businesses do better when our oil and gas industry is doing well. And certainly we sure appreciate the taxes they pay. We love to talk about this being a very tax-friendly state. And that is true for most industries. The oil and gas industry carries the load for the other businesses. So on behalf of the other non-oil and gas businesses, I always like to say thanks to them for that contribution to keep other taxes low and make this a great state to do business in. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, I'd stand for any questions.
Committee, any questions? Thank you, Mr. McKay. I'll just throw one more thing out there. You talked about GDP. We heard from Mr. Obermueller, the benefits, property taxes we save. Nobody's arguing that at all. I mean, those are all good things for the state of Wyoming, but at the end of the day, we still need to protect property rights and liberty. I mean, and protect the minority. And just don't want them to get steamrolled at the expense of focus on GDP for the state of Wyoming. And when they have rights, and maybe it goes to court and they determine the extent of public use, and they might lose. But we're just trying to look out for, in a republic, the minority voice as well. So thank you for your testimony today. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, thanks. I think those are, understand what you're saying. And, I do think, again, I think we've got a great system in place that does have some checks and balances. You have that third branch of government involved to make sure that you end up with fair deals. And, when I look at this, I think about my kids. And, as I look ahead and we're talking about protecting minority rights, I certainly want my kids to be able to find a job in Wyoming. And we won't have that if we don't have economic prosperity here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, sir, for being here. You're welcome. Further public comment? Anybody online? Nobody online. All right, committee, I guess we're at the point of entertaining a motion to move this bill. Is there a motion? It's been moved by Representative Strzok. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Ottman. Any amendments? Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to go to page 3, line 2, strike 66 and put in 90%. Now, my reasoning is that I think that we have a David and Goliath situation here where some landowner is looking at a huge corporation with unlimited funds, and we don't need to give them a club. I think it would equal out the bargaining position of the landowner. So that's my reasoning. Thank you.
Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Strzok. Further discussion? Any discussion? On the amendment, yeah. Seeing no discussion, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor of Representative Johnson's motion to amend the bill from 66% on page 3, line 2 to 90%, say aye. Opposed?
No.
We'll do a hand count. All those in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Motion fails. Back on the bill. Any further amendments? Senator Pearson, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a question. So what is currently, I mean, I'm just wondering what is currently the law as far as any pipelines, like oil and gas pipelines that go across the state? Is it now at 66% for oil and gas pipelines, or was that only for the transmission lines as far as the windmills and stuff?
Ani, you want to chime in there?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Pearson, I apologize. So the 66% language that we use for the energy collector systems, I'm pretty sure that's unique to just those collector systems. As far as pipelines go, the current eminent domain statutes apply to those. But I don't think there's like any 66% requirement or anything like that.
Thank you, Ani. Senator Crago.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's actually a very specific provision in statute that gives pipelines their own power of eminent domain. It's separate from all the other powers of eminent domain, and it's been in the statute books for almost 50 years. So just so you know, it's a very carved out special eminent domain that there's other types of eminent domain. If you get into Title I, Chapter 26, you can start going through all of them, but pipelines have their own and have for a very long time. And the purpose is to help develop Wyoming's resources. So that should help you answer your question.
Thank you, Senator Crago. Representative Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to propose another amendment, and that would be to segregate sequestration and disallow sequestration as a use of a pipeline. Thank you.
Is there a second? Senator Pearson, is that a second? Well, let's stick with that. Second by Representative Strzok. Discussion. Go ahead, Senator Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just want to be clear. So you're wanting to separate the two types of pipelines in this bill and possibly have one provision for the enhanced oil recovery and another one for the sequestration. Is that right?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Pearson. I think that sequestration is going to benefit a small group of people, and it's not in the good of the state of Wyoming. And I think we need to stop this war on carbon, and that's my reasoning for this. Thank you.
Further discussion. Senator Love.
Yeah, just a quick thought. So it sounded like we have, from testimony we've heard, we have a couple opportunities to to go down and extract another 15 or 20% of the oil out after it gets done with its natural production. That carbon has to come from somewhere. And my basic understanding of carbon sequestration, that is, you're just capturing carbon from the atmosphere, and to do what with it? In this case, oil and gas is talking about using it to extract oil. So it would enhance and grow the oil industry in Wyoming, which is a vital part of our economy. But if they're not allowed to run any captured product through the pipeline, everything is captured at some point. So that means you couldn't run anything through the pipeline.
Representative Johnson?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Love, I would point out that during the Biden administration, they are looking to sequester carbon dioxide forever in our sandstone formations in Laramie County. I think that's a war on carbon. If they want to do that, the landowners want to do that, that's up to them. But I'm against use of eminent domain to place a pipeline across somebody's land to capture carbon and hold it forever. Thank you.
Senator Love, go ahead, follow up.
So just to follow up on this, so then maybe there's a better wording to use in that, because the carbon has to come from somewhere. And we know with this pipeline, its intended use is X. That they have to capture the oil from somewhere. Right? And so I just wonder if there's a better way of going about this than just a blanket. You can't capture or sequester.
Go ahead, Representative Johnson.
Thank you,
I'll get
Mr.
to you
Chairman.
next.
Senator Love, there's already a pipeline across Nebraska. There's a huge supplier in Omaha that wants to extend their pipelines into this formation, I believe. So that's what I'm getting at. I think they're a private corporation. It would benefit them to have a captive audience and a pipeline. And I just don't think that we need to use eminent domain to improve the profit of a corporation, especially in Nebraska. Thank you.
Senator Pearson.
Thank you, Chairman. I think where we're getting confused here is there's two types of pipelines. There's one where they're using, they're doing this carbon capture in this pipeline for enhanced oil recovery. There's another one where they are capturing the carbon dioxide and they're putting it into carbon sequestration. They're just putting it into the ground. They're putting this pipeline. It's happening in Southwest Wyoming. It's probably a 9-mile pipeline going from the Exxon plant all the way across to, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say names or not, but anyway, going all the way across over by the Fontenelle Dam. There are a lot of people in that area that are not happy that this pipeline is going across there. It's not being used for enhanced oil recovery. I think Exxon is making a lot of money doing this, capturing the carbon dioxide and pumping it into the ground, but there's two differences here. I am fine with the enhanced oil recovery. I want to make that clear. I'm not fine with just carbon capture, taking carbon dioxide out of the air just to build a pipeline and put it into the ground for sequestration. So I think there's two different issues that we're working with here, and perhaps I can get clarification from our Mr. Obermuller or somebody, but there's two different issues that we're talking about here.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. I think that's a good question to get a little more backdrop. So if it does, I think if it does get sequestered, can it be recovered and used for EOR too, would add on to that question. Thank you, Mr. Obermuller. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Senator Pearson. So I mentioned in response to Representative Ottman that there are multiple uses for CO2. But each of those uses don't have their own pipeline. The expense of that would be astronomical. So you can't, at least operationally, you can't separate them out. You can't separate the molecules and ban one and not the other, because they're going for multiple uses. And as you heard, the federal government and the One Big Beautiful Bill Act and the president, of course, have plussed up sequestration incentives. So are there companies that are doing that? Permanent sequestration incentives? Yeah, there are companies that are doing that. In Wyoming, what we tried to do, what you all passed in this last session, was actually incentivizing EOR. And then they took that idea that you all passed in Wyoming and nationalized it, which automatically repealed our bill, which was interesting. We passed a bill and it was repealed in 4 days. But the whole point of it was to try to incentivize productive use in EOR. But you can't separate the pipeline, you can't separate the molecules. So in the case of an EOR production, you expend all this enormous amount of capital. You work all these negotiations with the landowners, you build the facilities, et cetera, to do an EOR project, and then the price of oil tanks to $30 a barrel. And it's no longer viable at that point. So at that point, then what the company needs to have other options in order to stay viable themselves. So they go hand in hand. That's what my board chairman was saying about why a company under the direction of someone like Harold Hamm is interested in these things. It's about advancing and keeping alive oil and gas companies.
Does that answer your question? Go ahead, Senator Pearson.
Thank you. But there are two different ideas here, right? And I wanted an answer to Chairman Ide's question as well. So if there is a sequestration pipeline, it's not for the enhanced oil recovery, it's just a sequestration pipeline. Can you then recover that CO2 and use it for another project, another EOR project or whatever, or once it's in that green, in the ground, in that layer, that's just where it is. That's just where it's gonna remain.
Mr. O'Miller, want to take that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, sorry, I forgot that question. I didn't mean to ignore it. Appreciate you coming back to it. So I am not the technical geologist, so someone's going to have to come save me on the very specifics of that. CO2 under certain circumstances can be stored for a period of time, but permanent sequestration is permanent sequestration. It solidifies. So it's not, if that's the goal of the project, the goal of it is permanent sequestration, not for reuse. That doesn't mean there's not processes that allow for reuse under certain timeframes. Does that make sense?
Go ahead, Senator.
I was hoping to not have to talk as much on this one.
You're good. You're good.
Me too,
Jeez.
Senator.
Sorry, thank you.
Let's flesh this out.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so what do you think of the idea of, like Representative Johnson has just asked for, splitting this, saying that for carbon sequestration pipelines, there has to be a pretty high percentage of I guess approval by the landowners versus advanced oil recovery. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Pearson, I understand the effort and I appreciate the effort of trying to allow the avenue for enhanced oil recovery. The trouble is on the ground, functionally, it's unworkable because we can't separate the pipelines and the molecules. So we'll be doing, companies will do EOR and may do sequestration. There's different regulatory schemes for that, et cetera. But you can't pull them apart. It's like yeast in bread. You can't pull it apart.
Yeah, Senator Crago.
Just maybe help clarify or ask a question to clarify, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Obermuller, We're talking about one pipeline that takes the same substance to multiple places, which gets used for different things at the multiple places, correct?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
So that's why we can't divide out the pipelines for purposes of this bill, correct?
Mr. Chairman, that's my position, correct.
Go ahead, Representative Ottman. We'll give Senator Pearson a little
Give her a
breather
little
here.
break. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to ask then, when we're looking at projects, like companies decide what they're going to do they say, okay, for this project, we're going to need to build this pipeline, and then if we're going to go over here and put all these lines out for CO2 for enhanced recovery, is that two different jobs, two different projects that we're looking at? So there would be two different, there would be a pipeline for this particular job. We got hired to do this, or our company decided to do this work. So we're going to build a pipeline and do that. And then over here, we may have the job of something else. And so we're going to build a pipeline because we're going to put it here.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, if I understand the question, it's very project specific. So let me just give you an actual example in Wyoming right now. There's a project that is probably the closest to fruition that has been in Wyoming in a decade. It's a 3-field cluster that is in Campbell County. And it is, I can't remember the mileage, it's pretty small. I hesitate to say, I don't want to be misquoted, but some small number of miles that a new pipeline would need to be built, a spur from the trunk line I mentioned before, that would go to that 3-cluster field. And that is a specific EOR project. So the idea of that pipeline is, of course, specific EOR. But in the event that the economics, because of the price of oil or some other act of God, whatever, makes it not usable, then the CO2, the molecules are still the same, and they may need to sequester it at that point. So there's no way for a company to be able to say, from an EOR company to say, we're only going to use it for this specific purpose for all time.
Thank you, Mr. Overmiller. Go ahead, Representative Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Overmiller, you're talking about a pipeline that's already in place, and the price of oil drops, you still have that pipeline. You have already used or not used eminent domain for that pipeline. That wouldn't be specific to this bill. What I'm saying is that you would not build a pipeline specifically to encapsulate CO2 in sandstone formations. I'm saying there's separation. It would be a spur. You would not be able to use eminent domain to cross somebody's land to sequester carbon dioxide. Once the pipeline's built, it's your pipeline. So I just want to make that point clear. Do you understand that, what I'm saying now? We have a pipeline to the Nebraska-Wyoming border, but I don't want to use eminent domain to cross somebody's land that doesn't want to use it.
Let me kind of piggyback on that, and then you can answer the question. I understand, I think, what Representative Johnson is talking about, like if you build a spur, and you use the word permanent sequestration. I think that was a key word. I mean, is there a spur going for permanent sequestration that would add on to his question? Thank you, Mr. Overmiller. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I fully understand what you're trying to do. What I'm saying is it's functionally impossible. That I don't think that it can be done, because you cannot, first of all, enhanced oil recovery produces oil, but then also permanently sequesters CO2, number one. And then number two, as I said, there has to be some mechanism. We can't just release CO2 into the atmosphere. So that's illegal. So we have CO2 we have to deal with in some way. So to your point, if a pipeline already exists, then perhaps you're correct. We're not talking about, this bill doesn't talk about it. What I'm talking about is building a spur for any purpose. I don't want to upset the apple cart in that sense.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just saying for a specific purpose to build a pipeline exclusively for sequestration. Once the pipeline's built, if it's built, we're not going to tear it down. We're not going to do anything with it. It's built. But I just don't want to allow a pipeline to be built exclusively for sequestration. Now, I could see a scenario where you used eminent domain to sequester CO2 and then continue that spur to an oil field. Well, once that pipeline's built, that's fine. You would take advantage of that situation. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative. I think Senator Love might want to piggyback on your comments there as well.
So I understand what Representative Johnson's getting at. If I understand what you just said, though, this was a new take, is that it's against the law for you to release CO2. So therefore, you're lawfully required, I'm assuming this is a federal law? By federal law, you're not allowed to release that carbon, so it has to remain somewhere. So if we slow down or prohibit your ability to do that, we slow down and prohibit the ability to extract oil and to propagate the resource that our state relies on pretty heavily.
Mr. Obermueller or Ms. Shelby, if you want to, it sounded like those were maybe a little bit two different questions, but if you want to try to address them both to satisfy both the representative and senator, thank you. Go ahead.
Do you mind if I take this one then? A couple things. One, sorry, it wasn't close enough to me. One, I would say some practical realities here. Wyoming has oil and gas. So the carbon that is captured is going to be used. That's the practical reality of when I say that carbon capture infrastructure is oil and gas infrastructure. Like, we want to bring it out of the ground, and the folks who are capturing it want a secondary use for it. So they can, profit from the use of that carbon that is captured. So the practical reality of Wyoming is that it will be used for EOR purposes. Now you compare that to a state like Missouri. Missouri doesn't have any oil and gas. They were not blessed in that sense. And so there's no production there. Well, they probably have some geologic caverns subsurface that can be used for sequestration purposes solely. So if they have an ethanol plant, or if they have a trona mine, or if they have any other type of plant that needs carbon captured from it, then their approach in a place like Missouri without the luxury of oil and gas would be just solely to capture it and store it subsurface. Wyoming, just practical reality of it, because we have so many reserves here that are untapped and haven't been touched yet, even the fields that have already been developed, like the Jonah field and so forth, the EOR potential on that is of such a magnitude that it's insane, and it'll increase the amount of production in this state tenfold easily. I'm probably being low on the numbers there. And so the practical reality of any carbon capture project here is that it will be used for EOR purposes. Otherwise, you have folks who are spending a lot of money to build infrastructure and probably not making the best business decisions. So there may be some storage that'll be associated very locally with the trona mines. Otherwise, it's going to be used. It's just a practical reality of Wyoming. I don't think I answered his question. I'm sorry.
Let me jump in, Mr. Chairman, on Senator Love's question really quickly, because I don't think I was clear enough. The release of CO2 is regulated by the federal government under the EPA. Now, we're in a little bit of different climate, if you will, under this administration than the previous administration on those regulations. Given the way our federal elections have gone in recent years, where every 4 years we have to whiplash 180 degrees, we don't have much confidence that it will stay the way it is today 4 years from now. And so what the current EPA has been doing is trying to inject a little bit more certainty into what coal-fired power plants, oil and gas operations, industrial cement plants, all those things do in terms of their emissions. And those were getting tightened and tightened and tightened and tightened, in our opinion, well beyond what made sense. Those have been at least marginally under President Trump released a little bit, but we don't have any confidence that that's going to stay. So I just wanted to come back to it because I think I may have overstated it by just blanket saying it's illegal. That's not quite true. It's not, and it wasn't what I meant. I mean, under the EPA's Clean Air Act regulations that we have had to abide by since the Clean Air Act and continue to get tighter and tighter and tighter with a slight pause right now.
Good, Senator Love. Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would have to agree with you, Mr. Pete, there. The pipeline that you're building and going to the enhanced oil recovery, you're injecting CO2 into the ground. And there is no way in heck that you're getting 100% of what you inject in the ground back out of the ground. So would it be fair to say that you're sequestering some CO2 through this operation in the ground? So to be able to split this pipeline two ways, how do you split this at the operation so I see a twofold on your guys' point. You're sequestering it and you're enhancing it. So that's just my opinion.
And Mr. Chairman, that's why Senator Barrasso and in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, they balanced the tax credit between enhanced oil recovery and permanent sequestration, was recognizing that very fact. So just for a point of reference, you probably know this already. Initially, enhanced oil recovery project has to get CO2 from somewhere. In Wyoming, we have a lot of point sources of CO2. Not all of them capture the CO2. Coal-fired power plants do not. Trona currently does not. The cement plant south of Laramie does not, those sorts of things, but they are point sources that are available. The Exxon facility does capture quite a bit of CO2. And so we have that source. An initial EOR project has to basically purchase, like I said, it's a commodity, purchase that CO2 initially to inject. After that, of course, the production of oil and gas produces its own CO2, which is then cycled back in. So the purchased amount goes down and down and down, and then we start to cycle it. And at the end of the project, everything you purchased and cycled is permanently sequestered.
Thank you. Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Obermueller, do you typically testify in front of agriculture, or is there a different committee that you are used to speaking to?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Provenza, I don't like choosing between all the children, but we're generally in front of minerals.
All right, thank you.
And as I said, they are actively pursuing several incentive ideas to help advance infrastructure. It's not just incentivize enhanced oil recovery. They're specifically looking at ways to help build new CO2 pipelines.
So in conflict.
That's correct.
Anybody else? Representative Johnson.
Yeah, I keep coming back to this. This is a sole purpose is to sequester CO2. It's not that we're going to enhance our oil fields and sequester, that it's solely for sequestration, which I think, in your point of view, you should have a lower cost of CO2 if this mass producer doesn't have a place to produce it and stick it into the ground. And I'm just saying that sole purpose is sequestration is not, I don't think we should use eminent domain for that purpose. Thank you.
Okay, committee. Let's move on here. I think we got all the questions. Thank you for coming up again. Stick around, may need you again, but I think we're on an amendment. Was there a second, moved and seconded a motion? Did you have one, Representative Johnson, on where were we? I kind of lost our spot.
Question.
Yeah, Anna.
Mr. Chairman, I believe the motion was from Representative Johnson to make it illegal to use a pipeline for carbon sequestration. I believe it was seconded by Pearson, and I think that's where we are.
Okay,
So
Representative Johnson.
I think I need to amend that and say the sole purpose is sequestration.
Okay, so we again have an amendment to an amendment, correct, committee? So are we okay?
They can do a friendly amendment if the mover and the second agree.
Okay, you moved it. You agree? Do you second agree? Okay, we're back on the amendment. Any further discussion? Ms. Johnson, would you read that amendment for us and we'll take a vote?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. So I believe we have to add a new subsection where it would be illegal to use a pipeline where the pipeline's sole purpose is for carbon sequestration. I do have a little bit of a concern that this bill is about eminent domain, and it seems that we're straying off of that, but obviously, I just wanted to make that point, but that it's up to the committee.
Thank you. Representative Provenza, did you have something?
No, Mr. Chairman, I was just going to say, I think it's unconstitutional because it doesn't fit under the title. So if you vote aye, you're voting to make this bill unconstitutional.
Representative Johnson, do you want to weigh in on that?
Well, I would like to propose an amendment that we put permanent carbon sequestration in the title. Thank you.
So that would be an addition, that'd be a different amendment. A separate amendment, or how do we go about that?
Mr. Chairman, I don't necessarily think that that's the issue. The problem is constitutionally, bills are supposed to have a single subject. And the subject of the bill is eminent domain. I think that we're straying into a different arena if we're outlawing pipelines that are used for carbon sequestration. That's what I was trying to say anyway.
Okay, Representative Provenza.
Thank you. And then, Mr. Chairman, I think even if you were to change the title, then you're violating what I would say is the public's opportunity to comment on something. Because if we're just going to ban this and we're not talking about eminent domain, we didn't have it on our public notice form. So people may have wanted to say something about that, but weren't prepared to because we brought it out of left field.
Any comments before we vote on the amendment? Representative Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, I would remove my amendments and let's just vote on the bill. Thank you.
Okay.
Both amendments?
Yeah. Committee, the amendment has been withdrawn. We're back on the bill. Any further amendments? Guess we're ready to vote. Representative Davis.
Just a statement here. I'll be a no on this because I believe, this is just throwing up some more roadblocks for for the industry that doesn't need any more roadblocks. And our current federal leadership has been tearing down the roadblocks. So I don't know why we're throwing another roadblock in the way. So I'll be a no on this bill.
Anybody else? Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Generally, I would be in favor of putting up roadblocks for this industry. But unfortunately, we're in a budget session. And I think that this is messy. So I'm going to be voting no out of respect for the budget session and the constitutional job that we have.
Anybody else? Yeah, Senator Love.
I just want to make sure I'm clear on something. We haven't had any eminent domain in decades for any purpose regarding pipelines and transmission.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Love, I'm not entirely sure that that's totally accurate. As far as we're talking about carbon dioxide pipelines and carbon sequestration, I'm pretty sure it hasn't been used in probably decades, right? But as far as like eminent domain as a whole or as like a concept in the state, I'm sure it's been used. I don't know where.
Senator Crago, thank you. Anna?
Just to be clear, eminent domain gets used all the time. If anybody's ever heard of a private road action, that's eminent domain. When you declare a private way of necessity over your neighbor's property, that's eminent domain. It's allowed in the Constitution. The Constitution, when it refers to eminent domain in Article 1, Section 32, does not require public use. Wyoming has a very unique eminent domain provision. The whole point of the provision is to utilize all of our vast resources in Wyoming, i.e. we don't want to landlock someone's piece of property. If someone has a piece of rural agricultural property in the middle of nowhere and they have to get through their neighbor's property to get there, the state has decided a long time ago in our Constitution that we want that property to be utilized for the benefit of the state and the owners of that property. The same applies to what we're talking about today. That's why we have all of these statutes regarding eminent domain, and the legislature over time has decided what is a proper use or not a proper use for eminent domain and has really defined what's set out in Article 1, Section 32, which does not require public use. Those terms are not in our Constitution, period. So just reminding everybody that our particular Constitution allows the taking of private property if it meets the qualifications set out in the Constitution and as defined by the legislature. And so that's really what we're talking about today. It's a policy choice. We get to make this policy choice, whether it's right or wrong, but that's what the Constitution says. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Crago. Buddy, I'll make one quick comment. Just, I don't think this bill is a roadblock. I think it's a property rights protection bill more than anything. And, Senator Crago's comments on the Wyoming Constitution, I think are correct. I've just looked at Article 1, Section 32 a little while ago and yesterday. There's a few other provisions in Article 10, refer them to corporations and stuff as well. But the U.S. Constitution is pretty specific on public use. And I think we need to honor that as well. We agreed to both defend the U.S. and the Wyoming Constitution. So I don't look at it. I mean, I was in the oil business. I was a landman. I got oil and gas leases. We had a lot of landowners that didn't want to lease their mineral rights. And I think that they have that right. That's a property right that they have. So I think, to me, I'm for the bill to honor protecting the minority. So thank you. Everybody ready to vote? Guess roll call.
Mr. Chairman, this is a roll call vote to sponsor 26 LSO 0209 eminent domain carbon dioxide pipelines. Senator Crago?
No.
Senator Love?
No.
Senator McEwen is excused. Senator Pearson?
Aye.
Representative Banks?
Aye.
Representative Davis?
No.
Representative Eklund is excused. Representative Johnson?
No.
Representative Ottman?
No.
Representative Provenza?
No.
Representative Schmid?
No.
Representative Strzok?
Aye.
Co-Chairman Winter?
Aye.
Chairman Ide.
Aye.
That is 5 ayes, 7 no, and 2 excused, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the bill fails. Thanks, everybody, for the good discussion. We'll move on to the next bill. This one's going to be a little different than what's on the agenda here. We've got this watershed improvement. This is 26 LSO 227. Senator Hicks brought this to the committee a couple of weeks ago. We got a bill draft. There was a staff comment on there that made it appear that it was unconstitutional the way he was going about this. So we've had some discussion with him, LSO and myself. He's willing to withdraw that bill. And what we'd like to do, you have a piece of paper in front of you here that Anna passed out. This would be essentially a redraft of that bill that would get it in compliance with Article 1, Section 32 that we just discussed. And anyway, if you have a quick question, go ahead, Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to point out, this bill was not motioned by the committee. Is that correct? So this bill was brought to the chairman from the senator. And the chairman, without a motion from the committee, has brought a draft to us for consideration for sponsorship that has not gone through the proper LSO process of we motion, LSO drafts the bill, and then we consider voting on that. But we did not take public comment on this specific type of legislation at the last meeting. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman?
That would be correct, Representative Provenza. And the way this transpired, it was brought to the chairman. We talked to LSO about the process of whether that was appropriate or not. And essentially that went up the flagpole, and they said that happens occasionally in committee meetings. Go ahead, Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it sounds like maybe it's happened. I would caution the committee to even consider this. Otherwise, anyone could lobby our committee at any point and bring a bill that they have as a personal bill at any point, and then we don't have to go through the proper process. There's not 2 public hearings on the bill, and now we're just considering it. So we can just have anybody waltz in and offer bills. And there's nothing keeping the good senator from bringing this as his own personal bill. There's no reason why he can't bring this by himself. But it would be an egregious, I think, overstep of how the committee does procedures if this is how we're going to start conducting business, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Provenza. Any other comments? So go ahead, Senator Craigo.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I don't feel quite as forceful as the good representative, but I mean, I do see a problem with the process. I mean, I think we all can generally agree that if we're gonna take up a whole new topic, whole new bill draft on, well, we don't even have a bill draft, but we're taking up a whole new topic on the last day of our last meeting. You know, and it's a fairly wide range. If we're doing the bill draft, proposed bill draft as outlined on the email, that affects every municipality, county, subdivision of the state, in the state, and not one of them are represented here today to even talk about it. So I mean, as far as us sponsoring it as a committee with the name Joint Ag on it, I do have a problem with that. I know when one of our other committees, this came up at our last meeting, and what we decided to do is if we all thought it was a good idea, we circulated the bill draft after the meeting. Any of the committee members, or all of us, if we decided, could just put our names on it as the committee. It just wouldn't say Joint Ag. It would just say all of us.
Sure.
As individual legislators, which isn't the same as having the name Joint Ag on there, but it at least would carry the weight of all of us saying we either do or do not agree with the bill, I guess. So just a suggestion, because I do see a problem with the process too, just knowing that not one of the entities that will be affected by this is here today. I'm looking around, I don't see any of them. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Craigo. Yeah, just to make some comments on that, I'm kind of a new chairman here. I tried to do the proper route that I was asked to do from a veteran, and you know, maybe that doesn't set well, and maybe it, you know, at the end of the day, it's not the proper way to go about it. But I would like to ask a show of hands for this redraft, if anybody would agree to do that, and just to finish the process on this bill. And with that right now, everybody down there at the end, do you understand what we're going to do here? So basically what we're going to do, this sheet in front of you is a requested redraft of the bill that was just withdrawn. And if there's a show of hands enough to have a redraft of that bill and have it passed out to the committee. I checked on that process too, and it could go around to the committee and they could vote yes or no, whether we wanted to sponsor that bill or not. So Representative Davis.
One question then, would it be under the senator's terms or the representative's terms? Would it be under individual names all on there, or would it have joint ag on there? That's my
You know, and I guess that could be part of the hand raise here too. If we did it that way, Senator Crago's format was more of, we put all of our names on there individually and sponsor it as an individual bill and not joint ag. So, you know, that's a good question, Representative Davis. I don't know. I guess since I'm the chairman, probably the proper way to do it is the way Senator Crago brought it up, and we can move forward there. So this show of hands would be if we want to pass this around to the committee to co-sponsor this bill after it's drafted, and you don't have to if you don't want to, but that would be one way to do it. So with that, if there's no discussion, I'll ask for a show of hands if we want to individually sponsor a redraft of this bill of Senator Hicks. All those in favor? Anybody online?
If you want to and then put your individual names on it.
I guess, can I ask, does that mean we're redoing it today?
Did you get your mic?
Oh. Thank you, Chairman. So does that mean if we raise our hand, we're reworking it today?
Representative Strzok, know what, we'd be raising our hand to have a bill drafted, and then it would be emailed to you, and you could choose whether to sponsor it or not.
That's what I.
Representative Davis, 2 hands. What was the vote count? Did the hand raise, where did that end up? Yeah. So Anna, did we get a hand count on that, or do we need to retry here?
So 6 of you raised your hands to have it drafted and then vote on whether or not you want to each sign off on the bill. But it wouldn't be an ag bill, it would just be an individual bill with whoever wants to sponsor it as co-sponsors, I'm assuming, right?
I
Okay.
think that's right.
Okay.
Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my point would be, if that's the case, then, I mean, you all could have a meeting and then we can release our staff, and we can, and those of us who aren't interested in this process can leave. Is that correct? Since it would just be an individual bill? Or are we going to allot staff time to doing this?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I know. I think you can, right now, all we're going to do, we're going to vote to go ahead and have staff draft a bill, and then we're done.
Oh, we're not working?
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
And I think I'm saying that right, aren't I, Anna? Yeah.
Right, so you would, well, you basically just determined that you'd like me to draft the bill, and then I'll draft it up and I'll pass it to the 6 who wanted to co-sponsor it, and we'll call it a day, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
All right, committee. Have I missed anything?
The public might want to know what we're talking about, just throwing that out there.
Mr. Chairman, we put copies out in the hall, didn't we? Yes, we did. So copies of the wording is out in the hall if anybody wants to look at it.
Yeah. And would you just go ahead and read, just so, while they're here, just read
Sure.
what this essentially does?
Sure. So Senator Hicks, his proposed language was that we would basically be saying the state and any subdivision of state government that is utilizing state funds for the construction of water projects covered under Article 1, Section 32 of the Wyoming Constitution, that is using state funds for all or part of the project shall require approval of the legislature prior to exercising the use of eminent domain for the taking of private property. And I'd probably reword that a little bit, but that's the gist of it.
All right, committee. What else? We done? I guess I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. I think we got all our business taken care of. We're only 3 hours late.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned.